Russia's total combat losses since the start of its full-scale invasion now stand at an estimated 1,369,340 personnel, with approximately 1,300 soldiers killed or wounded in action in just the last 24 hours alone. And what you are about to hear is going to completely shatter the narrative that Moscow has been feeding its own people. Because right now, on the morning of June 5, 2026, the battlefield picture is more catastrophic for Russia than at any point in the past 4 years of this war, and we are going to walk you through every single development that happened in the last 24 hours, starting with the front lines, then moving to the deep strikes that have the Kremlin quietly panicking, and ending with a massive escalation that proves Ukraine is not just surviving this war, it is methodically dismantling Russia's ability to wage it. So stay with me, because this is the most important 15 minutes of war analysis you will watch today. Along the contact line in Zaporizhzhia Oblast, Ukrainian forces reported clashes yesterday near Sychneve, Voronezh, Ternove, and Verbove, with additional fighting at the Orikhiv direction near Stepnohirsk and in the Hulia-Pyla direction near Ribne, Dobropilya, Varvarivka, Sviatopetrivka, Zaliznichne, and pushing toward Privilya, Rizdvyanka, Vozdvizhivka, Nove Zaporizhzhia, Kosivtseve, Tsvitkove, Staroukrainka, Krinichne, Huliapilske, and Charivne. And if those names mean nothing to you, what they mean on the map is that Russia is grinding, bleeding, pushing forward centimeter by centimeter, paying in blood for every single meter of muddy Ukrainian earth. And the Ukrainian General Staff's morning report makes clear that not one of these directions has produced a Russian breakthrough. Not one. And that is critically important context, because British Defense Intelligence reported that Russian military activity has largely focused on assaulting major fortified Ukrainian urban areas, such as Dobropilya, Vovyansk, and Kostiantynivka, with progress described as slow and steady, while Russian forces have been making some gains in the northern Ukrainian border regions of Sumy and Kharkiv oblasts, seeking to create a 20-kilometer deep buffer zone and stretch Ukrainian defensive lines. But here is what Russia does not want you to understand. Slow and steady in this war does not mean winning. It means bleeding out on a timeline that Moscow simply cannot afford. And the casualty rate we just cited, 1,300 men in a single day, is the undeniable proof of that mathematical reality. Russian forces carried out 924 strikes on 52 settlements across the Zaporizhzhia region in just the past 24 hours, killing 1 person and injuring 4 others in Zaporizhzhia city and the district. And while those numbers sound horrific, and they are horrific for every single civilian on the receiving end of those drones and shells, the broader picture is one of a military machine that is spending enormous resources and achieving minimal results. And we know this because since late February 2024 to early January 2026, Russian forces advanced just under 50 kilometers toward Pokrovsk at an average pace that military analysts describe as grinding attritional warfare with no rapid breakthrough capacity. And yet Russia keeps throwing men at the line, keeps burning through its artillery shells, keeps sacrificing company after company of soldiers who were supposed to be resting in what Moscow promised them was a safe, victorious rear. And that brings us to the most stunning development of the last 24 hours, which is not on the front line at all. It is 1,400 kilometers behind it. Ukrainian drones rained down on St. Petersburg overnight, striking key infrastructure and wounding several people, just hours before Russian President Vladimir Putin's signature economic forum drawing thousands of attendees opened in the city, with hundreds of drones hitting several Russian cities, and Kyiv claiming to have struck a naval warship and other key assets in a major attack reaching as far as Moscow. Let that sink in for a moment, because St. Petersburg is not a border town. It is Russia's second city. It is the city Putin was personally hosting his so-called Russian Davos economic forum in, a gathering designed to project power and economic stability to the world. And Ukraine chose that exact moment, those exact hours, to remind every foreign diplomat and business leader sitting in that conference hall that no place in Russia is safe, that the war Putin started is a war that has now come all the way back to his own front door. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reported positive results from long-range strikes against key targets, including the St. Petersburg oil terminal, described as one of the largest oil transshipment complexes in northwestern Russia, which plays a crucial role in Russian fuel exports and logistics. And think about what that means strategically, because oil and fuel are not just money for Russia, they are literally the blood of the military machine. They are what moves the tanks, launches the drones, fuels the helicopters, and powers the logistics trains that keep Russian soldiers supplied on the front. So when Ukraine strikes that terminal, it's not just making headlines, it's pulling a thread in the fabric of Russia's ability to sustain this war. And every oil terminal hit, every fuel depot torched, every tanker struck in the Black Sea is another thread pulled. Russia's Ministry of Defense reported that overnight, 354 Ukrainian drones were intercepted and destroyed over multiple regions, with 59 drones shot down near St. Petersburg alone. And Russia's Air Defense Ministry is very good at putting out these interception numbers. But notice what they never tell you: what got through, because something always gets through. And we have the satellite imagery, we have the smoke rising from the dry dock, we have the confirmed naval vessel strike, and we have Zelensky himself on record saying the results were positive. So the interception numbers are a distraction. The story is what burned. A drone hit a bus traveling between Moscow and Simferopol in Crimea in Russian-controlled Donetsk, killing at least 8 people and injuring 10 others within Russian-controlled Donetsk, with Russia's state news agency TASS reporting that the investigative committee opened a criminal investigation under the category of terrorist attack. And Russia calling this a terrorist attack is almost breathtaking in its audacity, because this is a country that just days ago launched 656 drones and 73 missiles at Ukraine overnight, targeting Kyiv, Dnipro, Poltava, Kharkiv, and Zaporizhzhia, killing at least 22 people and wounding dozens more, including children. And yet Ukraine strikes back inside Russian-controlled territory. Suddenly it becomes terrorism. This is the Kremlin's information warfare in its rawest form, designed for a domestic Russian audience that has been told for 4 years that this is a special military operation against Nazis, not a war that is now landing on their own soil. Russia launched another mass missile and drone attack against Ukraine overnight, with Ukraine striking Russian air bases in what its general staff called a preemptive strike, with the Ukrainian drone attack also destroying a helicopter at a Russian airfield in Bryansk. And that Bryansk helicopter destruction is particularly significant because Bryansk is in European Russia. It is not far from the border, but it represents Ukraine's continued systematic campaign to degrade Russia's rotary wing aviation, because helicopters are critical to Russian close air support operations. They are what Russia uses to attack Ukrainian armored columns, to provide fire support during infantry assaults, and every helicopter Ukraine destroys is a gap in Russian tactical air cover over the front line. Now let us go back a few days and talk about the event that set the tone for this entire escalatory cycle, because none of what is happening this week makes complete sense without understanding what Ukraine did on June 1st, 2025, 1 full year ago, and how its legacy is still reverberating through Russian military planning today. Operation Spiderweb was a covert drone attack carried out by the Security Service of Ukraine deep inside Russia on June 1, 2025, with coordinated strikes targeting the Russian Air Force's long-range aviation assets at 5 air bases: Belaya, Diaghilevo, Ivanovo-Severny, Olenia, and Ukrainka, using drones concealed in and launched from trucks on Russian territory, employing 117 drones and representing the largest drone attack on Russian airbases at that point in the war. The operation took 18 months of meticulous planning, used cargo containers custom-built to conceal drones hidden in wooden boxes mounted beneath roofs, and Ukrainian operatives managed to transport attack drones nearly 5,000 kilometers across Russian territory. Think about that number again. 5,000 kilometers. That is the distance from Paris to Baghdad. That is transcontinental infiltration of the Russian state. And Russia's FSB, its intelligence service, its border guards, its military security apparatus, none of them detected it until the drones were already in the air. The 117 drones used in Operation Spiderweb destroyed over 40 aircraft, including critical assets like the A-50 Early Warning and Control aircraft, T-95 and T-22 M3 bombers, with estimates suggesting a financial impact exceeding $7 billion, and more critically, severely undermining Russia's strategic aviation capabilities, because Russia cannot replace the lost aircraft. And that last clause is the one that matters more than any dollar figure, because Russia cannot replace them. The production lines for T-95 bombers have been closed for decades. The T-22 M3 is no longer in production. The A-50 Early Warning aircraft takes years to build. And so what Ukraine did in one night is not something Russia can simply buy its way out of or manufacture its way back from. The damage is permanent, the capability is gone, and every night that Russia cannot launch as many cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities is a night those Ukrainian cities' residents get to sleep slightly safer than they would have otherwise. Russia responded by launching a mass missile and drone attack following the Operation Spiderweb anniversary, targeting virtually all of Ukraine, hitting Volyn, Lviv, Ternopil, Kyiv, Sumy, Poltava, Khmelnytsky, Cherkasy, and Chernihiv regions with over 400 drones and 40 missiles, killing 4 people including first responders and injuring 80, according to Zelensky, who called it a cynical Russian strike on ordinary cities. This is Russia's answer to its humiliation, not a military answer, not a strategic answer, but a terrorist answer. Hitting cities, hitting civilians, hitting first responders, as if killing a grandmother in Poltava somehow replaces the T-95 bombers burning on the runway at Belaya airfield, and the world needs to understand that these are not equivalent military actions. One side is striking strategic military targets, while the other is murdering civilians, and the moral clarity of this war has never been more apparent than it is right now. Ukrainian border guards killed nearly 300 Russian troops and wounded approximately the same number over the past week alone, reflecting the continued, relentless attrition that Russia is suffering in its attempt to push deeper into Ukrainian territory. And when you add those numbers to the 1,300 casualties reported in the last 24 hours, and you multiply that across the weeks and months of this war, you begin to understand why by the end of May 2025, Russia had likely incurred approximately 980,000 casualties killed and wounded since launching the full-scale invasion, according to Ukrainian General Staff data and UK Ministry of Defense assessments. And today's updated figure of 1.36 million total personnel losses represents a scale of human catastrophe that has no modern parallel. This is a military that has spent over 1 million soldiers for territorial gains that amount to a fraction of Ukraine's land area, at a cost that no nation can sustain indefinitely. Russian forces also attacked 4 districts of Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region more than 50 times throughout the day, killing 1 person and injuring 5 others, while a Russian drone struck a trolleybus in Zaporizhzhia, and Russian troops struck a Nova Post terminal in Dnipro, again. And we keep saying again because Russia keeps striking civilian infrastructure, civilian buses, civilian postal terminals, civilian apartment buildings, because the strategy is not to win on the battlefield where it is failing. The strategy is to break the will of the Ukrainian people, to make life so miserable, so dangerous, so painful that Ukrainians demand their government accept Russian terms. And 4 years of this strategy have produced 0 results in that direction, because the Ukrainian people have made their answer clear in every poll, in every evacuation, in every volunteer who picks up a rifle, and every engineer who designs a better drone to strike back. Ukraine's military intelligence has revealed the use of highly sophisticated, decentralized drone operations to eliminate Russian air defenses during deep strike missions, and this is the technological evolution that is quietly changing the calculus of this war, because Russia's air defense systems, the S-300, the S-400, the Pantsir, they were designed to defeat missiles, they were designed to defeat aircraft, they were not designed to defeat swarms of cheap, fast, maneuvering FPV drones that can be reprogrammed in real time, that can be built in a garage for a few $1,000s, and that can be replaced faster than Russia can manufacture another S-400 radar. And so what we are watching in real time is a wealthy conventional military power slowly being outmaneuvered by a nation that has turned innovation, desperation, and asymmetric ingenuity into its most powerful weapon. On May 28th, likely Ukrainian drones struck 3 crude oil tankers in Turkey's exclusive economic zone, an act that represents Ukraine expanding its strategic reach beyond just Russian territory, targeting the shadow fleet that Russia uses to export the oil that funds the entire military operation. And combined with the St. Petersburg oil terminal strike, what we are seeing is a coordinated, systematic Ukrainian campaign to strangle Russia's energy export capacity, to cut the financial oxygen supply that Moscow needs to keep buying Iranian drones, North Korean shells, and Chinese microchips. Because this war is not just fought in Zaporizhzhia, it is fought in the balance sheets of Russian state energy companies, and Ukraine has clearly decided to take the battle there as well. The broader strategic picture as we stand on June 5, 2026 is one that would have been almost unimaginable when this war began in February 2022. Russia controls approximately 17 to 19% of Ukraine's internationally recognized territory as of early 2026, roughly 110 to 120,000 square kilometers, including Crimea, with the front line stretching approximately 1,000 to 1,100 kilometers. And while that sounds like a lot of occupied land, the reality is that Russia has been paying catastrophically to hold that line, and every week of this war makes Russian strategic objectives harder to achieve, not easier, because the longer this drags on, the more Ukrainian drones fill the skies, the more Ukrainian soldiers learn the art of combined arms warfare, the more international military aid flows into Ukrainian arsenals, and the more the Russian military-industrial complex reveals its inability to replace the equipment it has lost. What the next 24 hours will look like is more of the same and worse. More Russian missiles aimed at Ukrainian cities, more Ukrainian drones aimed at Russian oil infrastructure, more clashes in Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia, more Russian soldiers dying in tactical assaults that gain nothing strategic, and more Ukrainian engineers sitting in workshops somewhere, building the next Operation Spiderweb, the next weapon system that will make Moscow realize it chose the wrong enemy, that it woke up a people who will not stop, that it started a war it fundamentally does not know how to end. If you want to understand why this matters beyond Ukraine's borders, consider this. Every Russian bomber destroyed by a Ukrainian drone is one fewer bomber available to threaten NATO members. Every Russian soldier killed in Donetsk is one fewer soldier available to mass on a Baltic border. Every ruble burned on this war is one fewer ruble available to fund the next destabilization operation in Moldova, Georgia, or Central Asia. Ukraine is not just fighting for Ukraine, it is paying a price in blood and rubble so that the rest of Europe does not have to. And the least the world can do is pay attention to what is happening here, on this front line, on this day, June 5, 2026, day 1197 of a war that Russia chose and Ukraine refuses to lose.